There's a specific kind of silence that exists between two people who once knew every inch of each other's souls, but now can barely look each other in the eye. Elena lived in that silence. For 3 years, she'd been married to a man who felt more like a stranger than a husband, a man who came home late, ate dinner in silence, and disappeared into his study without a word. She convinced herself she could live with loneliness, that some marriages were just like this, quiet, functional, empty. But on a rainy Tuesday in October, standing in their pristine kitchen with divorce papers trembling in her hands, Elena decided she couldn't do it anymore. She had no idea that the man upstairs, the one she thought didn't care, was about to show her exactly how wrong she'd been all along. If this story touches your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Comment where you're listening from. And if you feel it was really worth it, consider becoming a member to get early access to upcoming stories. Your support makes all the difference. The apartment smelled like expensive minimalism, all white marble and steel, cold surfaces that reflected nothing but emptiness. Elena had chosen every piece of furniture when they first moved in, back when she still believed in beginnings, when she thought Damien's silence meant depth rather than distance. Now, 3 years later, those same carefully chosen pieces felt like props in a stage play. Neither of them wanted to perform anymore. She stood at the kitchen island, the divorce papers spread before her like an accusation. Her lawyer had delivered them that morning, crisp and official. Every clause a nail in the coffin of what they'd once promised each other. Elena's hand shook as she read through them again, not because she was uncertain, but because finality always felt heavier than you expected it to. Upstairs, she could hear the shower running, Damien's evening routine, precise as clockwork. Home at 7. Shower at 7:15. Dinner at 7:45, if he bothered to come down at all. Elena had memorized his patterns the way you memorize the layout of a prison, knowing exactly where the walls were, exactly how much space you had to move. She'd rehearsed this moment 100 times. She would wait until he came downstairs, hand him the papers calmly, explain that this wasn't working, that they both deserved better than this hollow performance of a marriage. He would probably nod, sign them without argument, maybe even look relieved. They would divide their assets like rational adults, sell the apartment, move on with their separate lives. Clean, simple, painless. Except her chest felt like it was caving in, and her throat kept closing around words she couldn't quite name. The water stopped. Elena heard the bathroom door open, footsteps crossing the bedroom above her head. She took a deep breath, straightening the papers one more time, trying to arrange her face into something neutral, something that wouldn't betray the fact that part of her was screaming to run, to tear up these papers, to go upstairs and demand to know when exactly they'd stopped being real to each other. But she didn't run. She never ran. Elena had learned early in life that running solved nothing, that you had to face difficult things head-on, even when every instinct told you to flee. His footsteps descended the stairs, slow and deliberate. Elena kept her eyes on the papers, watching the words blur slightly as her vision swam. She blinked hard, refusing to cry, not now, not when she needed to be strong. Damien entered the kitchen, and Elena felt rather than saw his presence, that familiar shift in the air that had once made her heart race, and now just made her tired. She forced herself to look up. He stood in the doorway, dark hair still damp from the shower, wearing the gray sweatpants and black t-shirt he always changed into after work. At 6'2", he still had the same lean, powerful build that had caught her attention 5 years ago at that gallery opening. Still had those sharp green eyes that seemed to see through everything. But somewhere along the way, those eyes had stopped looking at her, really looking, the way they used to. Elena. His voice was neutral, careful, the way you'd greet a colleague, not a wife. We need to talk. Her voice came out steadier than she felt, and she was grateful for that small mercy. Damien's gaze dropped to the papers on the counter, and something flickered across his face, too quick to read. "What's this?" "Divorce papers." She said it simply, without drama, the way you'd announce the weather. "I had them drawn up. I think we both know this isn't working anymore." The silence that followed felt thick enough to drown in. Damien didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at those papers like they were written in a language he couldn't comprehend. Elena pushed forward, needing to fill the quiet before it consumed her. "We barely talk anymore. You're always working. And when you're here, you're not really here. I can't remember the last time we had a real conversation, the last time you looked at me like I was more than just, I don't know, furniture. I think we've been over for a while now. We've just been too afraid to admit it." Still, he said nothing. His jaw tightened slightly, the only indication he'd heard her at all. "I'm not angry," Elena continued, and she meant it. Anger would have been easier, cleaner. What she felt was far more complicated, a tangle of grief and relief and exhaustion. "I just think we both deserve to be happy. Actually happy. And we're not going to find that here. Like this." Damien finally moved, taking 3 slow steps toward the counter. His eyes never left the papers. "You want a divorce?" "I think it's the right thing," Elena said softly. "For both of us." "The right thing," he repeated, his voice strange, almost hollow. Then he looked up, and the intensity in his eyes made Elena's breath catch. "You think the right thing is to give up?" "I'm not giving up, Damien. I'm accepting reality. We're strangers who happen to share an address. That's not a marriage." Something dangerous flashed across his face. "Strangers." Yes, Elena held his gaze, even though every instinct screamed at her to look away. "When's the last time you kissed me? Really kissed me? Not just a pet goodbye before work. When's the last time we talked about something that mattered? When's the last time you even touched me? You want to talk about touching?" His voice dropped lower, darker, and Elena felt a shiver run down her spine that had nothing to do with cold. "That's not what I meant," Elena said, but her voice wavered slightly. There was something in Damien's posture now, something coiled and tense, like a storm building on the horizon. She'd seen him intense before, focused, driven in his work. But this was different. This felt personal, in a way nothing had felt between them in months. "Then what did you mean?" He moved closer, rounding the counter slowly, deliberately. Elena found herself stepping back instinctively, her hip bumping against the marble edge. "You think I don't want to touch you? You think I've forgotten how?" "You've had plenty of opportunities," Elena shot back, finding her spine again. "Every night you come home and go straight to your study. Every morning you leave before I'm awake. You've built an entire life that doesn't include me, Damien. So yes, I think you've forgotten. Or maybe you just don't care anymore." His laugh was sharp, bitter. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Then tell me." The words burst out of her, all the frustration of 3 years of silence suddenly finding voice. "Tell me what I'm missing, Damien. Because from where I'm standing, this marriage ended a long time ago, and we've both been too comfortable or too cowardly to admit it." "Comfortable?" He was directly in front of her now, close enough that she could smell his shower gel, that cedar and bergamot scent that used to make her dizzy. "You think I've been comfortable?" "I don't know what you've been," Elena said, hating the way her voice cracked. "You don't talk to me. You don't look at me. You barely acknowledge I exist except when it's absolutely necessary. What am I supposed to think?" Damien's hands gripped the counter on either side of her, caging her in, and Elena's heart started hammering against her ribs. His face was inches from hers, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his green eyes, the tiny scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood accident he'd told her about on their third date. "You want to know why I don't touch you?" His voice was rough, strained. "You want to know why I work late, why I lock myself in my study, why I leave before you wake up?" "Yes," Elena whispered, trapped between his arms, trapped by the sudden intensity radiating off him in waves. "Because if I touch you, Elena, I won't stop." The words came out harsh, raw, like they'd been ripped from somewhere deep inside him. "If I let myself kiss you the way I want to kiss you, if I let myself have even a taste of what I've been denying myself for months, I'll lose every shred of control I have left." Elena stared at him, her mind struggling to process what he was saying. "What are you talking about? Why would you deny yourself? Why would you? Because you deserve better than what I can give you." He pushed away from the counter suddenly, running his hands through his damp hair in frustration. "You deserve someone who can be gentle, patient, someone who can take things slow and steady. And I can't, God, Elena. I can't be that person with you." "I never asked you to be gentle," Elena said, her voice shaking. "I never asked you to be patient. I asked you to be present, to be here, to be my husband." "You don't understand." Damien turned back to face her, and there was something almost desperate in his expression now. "Every time I look at you, I want to devour you. Every time you walk past me in this apartment, I have to lock my jaw to keep from pulling you against me. Every morning I leave early, because if I watch you wake up one more time, if I see you stretching in that silk nightgown you wear, He cut himself off, jaw clenched so tight Elena could see the muscle jumping. "You'll what?" she pressed, her pulse racing now. Everything she thought she understood about their marriage suddenly tilting sideways. "I'll take you right there in that bed. And I won't be sweet about it, Elena. I won't be the considerate husband who asks permission for every touch. I'll make you scream my name so loud the neighbors complain, and I'll mark every inch of your skin until there's no question who you belong to." The air left Elena's lungs in a rush. Heat flooded her face, her chest, pooling low in her belly. "Damien." "So I stay away," he continued, his voice ragged. "I work late. I keep my distance, because I thought that's what you wanted. You're so delicate, so refined. You chose this pristine apartment with all its clean lines and empty spaces. You organize everything, control everything. I thought you needed that same control in us. You thought wrong." Elena's voice came out breathless, stunned. "You thought so completely wrong." "What?" She laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. "I chose this apartment because I was trying to create something, anything, that might make you stay. You were working such long hours, and I thought if I made everything perfect, if I gave you this calm, organized space to come home to, you'd want to be here more. I became the perfect, quiet wife because I thought that's what you needed after long days dealing with chaos at work." Damien stared at her like she'd spoken in a foreign language. "And the nightgown?" Elena felt bold suddenly, reckless. "I wore it, hoping you'd notice, hoping you'd finally look at me the way you used to. But you never did. You just left earlier and earlier every morning until I started to think," her voice broke. "I started to think you found me repulsive." "Repulsive," Damien repeated, the word harsh in his throat. "Elena, I find you so attractive. It physically hurts to be in the same room with you and not touch you. Do you have any idea how many cold showers I've taken? How many nights I've worked until I was too exhausted to think about coming upstairs and—" He stopped, shaking his head. "This is insane. We're insane. We've been married for 3 years and somehow managed to completely misunderstand each other. 3 years of silence, Elena said quietly. 3 years of assumptions. 3 years of being afraid to tell each other the truth. The truth, Damien said, his eyes locked on hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. You want the truth, Elena? Yes. He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hand coming up to cup her face, with a gentleness that belied the fire in his eyes. The truth is, I'm in love with you. Desperately, completely, obsessively in love with you. I have been since the night we met, and it's only gotten worse. Every day I fall deeper, and every day I want you more. And it terrifies me because I've never felt anything like this. Never needed anyone the way I need you. Elena's breath caught, tears suddenly blurring her vision. Then why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me think you didn't care? Because caring isn't the problem, Elena. It's how much I care. It's the intensity of it. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, wiping away a tear that had escaped. You're this beautiful, graceful, composed woman, and I'm barely civilized when it comes to you. I want you in ways that aren't gentle or patient. I want to consume you, possess you, keep you so thoroughly that you forget anyone else exists. Maybe I want that too, Elena whispered, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Maybe I'm tired of being graceful and composed. Maybe I've been dying inside this perfect, empty apartment, waiting for you to see me, really see me. Damien's other hand came up, framing her face now, holding her like she was something infinitely precious and infinitely fragile at the same time. These divorce papers. Burn them, Elena said fiercely. I don't want them. I never wanted them. I just wanted my husband back. I wanted you. Something broke in Damien's expression, some last wall crumbling. If I kiss you right now, Elena, I won't stop. I won't be gentle. I won't be the man you think you married. You are the man I married, Elena said, reaching up to grip his wrists, holding his hands against her face. I married all of you, Damien. Not just the controlled professional version you show the world. I married the man underneath. The one you've been hiding from me. Elena. Her name came out like a prayer, like a warning, like a plea all at once. Kiss me, she said. Stop hiding from me and just kiss me already. For one suspended moment, Damien hesitated, his eyes searching hers like he was looking for permission, for certainty, for absolution. Then something shifted, and Elena saw the exact moment his control shattered. His mouth crashed onto hers with a hunger that stole her breath, his hands sliding into her hair, angling her head back. This wasn't the chaste, distant kisses they'd exchanged in recent months, perfunctory pecks that meant nothing. This was claiming, devouring, 3 years of pent-up desire finally unleashed. Elena gasped against his mouth, and Damien took advantage, his tongue sliding against hers, in a rhythm that made her entire body ignite. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, needing him closer, trying to eliminate every inch of space between them. She'd forgotten this, forgotten how he tasted like mint and something darker, something uniquely him. Forgotten how his hands felt tangled in her hair, how his body felt pressed against hers, hard and solid and real. Damien pulled back just enough to breathe, his forehead pressed against hers, both of them panting. The bedroom, he said roughly. We should, no. Elena's voice was firm despite how badly she was shaking. Right here. I'm done waiting, Damien. I'm done with perfect and controlled and careful. I want you right here, right now, in this pristine kitchen that I hate. Something feral flashed in his eyes. Elena, if we do this here, if I take you on this counter, I'm going to ruin you for anywhere else. I'm going to make sure every time you walk into this kitchen, all you can think about is how I made you feel. Promise? The word came out breathless, reckless. Damien's answering smile was dark, dangerous, devastating. You have no idea what you're asking for. Then show me, Elena challenged, lifting her chin. Stop telling me what you think I can't handle, and show me who you really are. The last thread of his restraint snapped. Damien lifted her onto the counter in one fluid motion, his hands gripping her thighs, spreading them so he could step between them. Elena's skirt rode up, and she didn't care. Didn't care about anything except the way Damien was looking at her now, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered, like he wanted to memorize every detail. You're wearing too many clothes, he murmured, his hand sliding up her thighs, fingers dancing along the edge of her skirt. So are you, Elena managed, tugging at his shirt. He pulled it off in one smooth motion, tossing it aside, and Elena's hands immediately went to his chest, feeling the lean muscles she'd denied herself for so long. He was beautiful, all angles and strength, and the way he shuddered under her touch made her feel powerful in a way she'd forgotten. Damien's hands found the buttons of her blouse, and he paused, eyes meeting hers one more time. Last chance to change your mind. I'm not changing my mind, Elena said firmly. I'm changing everything, starting right now. He undid her buttons slowly, methodically, his eyes tracking every inch of skin he revealed. When her blouse fell open, he made a rough sound in the back of his throat. 3 years, he said, his voice strained. 3 years I've been imagining this, and reality is so much better. His hand spanned her waist, thumbs brushing the undersides of her breasts through her bra, and Elena arched into the touch, desperate for more. Damien, please. Please what? He leaned down, pressing hot kisses along her collarbone, his teeth grazing her skin just enough to make her gasp. Tell me what you want, Elena. Use your words. You, she breathed. I want you. All of you. No more holding back. Damien pulled back to look at her, and the raw need in his expression made her tremble. If I give you all of me, there's no going back. I'll ruin you for anyone else, Elena. I'll make sure you're so thoroughly mine that you can't imagine belonging to anyone else. Good, Elena said, pulling him down for another searing kiss. Ruin me. Make me yours. I've been yours since the moment we met, Damien. I just want you to finally claim what's always been yours. The groan that escaped him was pure male satisfaction. His hands moved with purpose now, unhooking her bra, sliding it off her shoulders, his mouth following the path of his hands. When his lips closed around her nipple, Elena's head fell back, a moan escaping her throat that she couldn't have controlled if her life depended on it. That's it, Damien murmured against her skin. Let me hear you. Let the whole building hear you. I want everyone to know exactly who's making you feel like this. His words should have embarrassed her, but instead they inflamed her. This was what she'd been missing. This raw, unfiltered passion, this sense of being completely desired, completely consumed. Damien's hands were everywhere, memorizing her, claiming her, and Elena met him, touch for touch, kiss for kiss, refusing to be passive, refusing to be the delicate thing he'd convinced himself she was. You're so beautiful, Damien breathed, pulling back to look at her, his eyes dark with desire. So perfect. And you're mine, Elena. Say it. Tell me you're mine. I'm yours, Elena said without hesitation, her hand sliding down his back, feeling the muscles flex under her touch. I've always been yours, Damien. I just needed you to want me back. Want you? His laugh was harsh, disbelieving. Elena, wanting you has been my constant state for 3 years. Wanting you is what I do every minute of every day. It's an ache that never stops. A hunger that's never satisfied. Then satisfy it, Elena challenged, her legs wrapping around his waist, pulling him closer. Take what you want. Take what's yours. Something shifted in Damien's expression, something primal and possessive that made Elena's pulse spike. His hands gripped her hips hard enough to bruise, and she loved it. Loved the evidence that his control was finally, completely gone. "You're sure?" he asked one more time, and Elena appreciated that even lost in desire, he still cared enough to check, still wanted her consent. "I've never been more sure of anything," she said, meaning every word. "Please, Damien, no more waiting, no more distance. I need you." That was all the permission he needed. Damien captured her mouth in another devastating kiss as his hands worked between them, dispensing with the rest of their clothing with an efficiency that would have been impressive if Elena had been capable of coherent thought. But coherent thought had abandoned her the moment Damien's hands touched bare skin, the moment she felt him, all of him, pressed against her with nothing between them. "Elena," he groaned against her mouth. "God, you feel your—" "Don't stop," she gasped, her fingers digging into his shoulders. "Please don't stop." And he didn't. What happened next was raw and fierce, and exactly what Elena had been craving without knowing it. Damien took her apart with a precision that spoke of how well he knew her body, how much attention he'd been paying, even when she thought he wasn't. He knew exactly where to touch, where to kiss, how to move to make her gasp his name like a prayer. But it wasn't just physical. The way Damien looked at her, the way he whispered her name between kisses, the way his hands held her like she was the most precious thing in the world, even as he drove her toward the edge of sanity. It all spoke of something deeper than just desire. This was love, fierce and consuming, and absolutely terrifying in its intensity. "Look at me," Damien commanded softly, and Elena forced her eyes open, meeting his gaze. "I want to see you. I want to watch you fall apart." The intimacy of that, of being seen so completely, so vulnerably, was almost too much. But Elena didn't look away. She held his gaze as sensation built, as her body climbed higher and higher, as everything else fell away until there was nothing but this moment. This man, this overwhelming feeling of being completely and utterly connected to another human being. When she finally shattered, Damien's name on her lips, he was right there with her, his forehead pressed against hers, his breath mingling with hers, both of them lost in the same overwhelming rush of pleasure and emotion, and something that felt dangerously close to redemption. In the aftermath, as they clung to each other on the kitchen counter, both trembling and breathless, Elena felt tears sliding down her cheeks. But these weren't tears of sadness or frustration. These were tears of relief, of release, of finally being seen and known and loved the way she'd been desperately needing. "Don't cry," Damien murmured, kissing her tears away with a gentleness that contrasted beautifully with the intensity of moments before. "Please, don't cry, sweetheart." "I'm not sad," Elena managed, laughing through her tears. I can't believe we wasted so much time. 3 years, Damien. 3 years of being miserable when we could have had this." He pulled back to look at her, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I made you doubt yourself, doubt us. I thought I was protecting you from the intensity of what I felt, but I was just hurting us both." "We were both idiots," Elena said, cupping his face in her hands. "Both of us made assumptions instead of just talking. Both of us let fear drive decisions instead of love." "No more assumptions," Damien said firmly, covering her hands with his. "No more silence. From now on, we talk. About everything. Even the hard things. Especially the hard things." "Deal," Elena agreed. Then she looked around at their current position, half-dressed on the kitchen counter, and started laughing. We're really doing this, aren't we? Having the most important conversation of our marriage while we're naked in the kitchen? Damien's smile was warm, genuine, the first real smile she'd seen from him in months. I think it's perfect. No more pretense, no more perfect facade. Just us, messy and real and finally honest. I love you, Elena said, the words coming easily now. I love you so much, Damien. Even when I was angry, even when I thought you didn't care, I never stopped loving you. I love you too, he replied, his voice rough with emotion. More than I know how to express. You're everything to me, Elena. Everything. They stayed like that for a long moment, just holding each other, both marveling at how close they'd come to losing this, to throwing away something precious because of miscommunication and fear. Finally, Damien carefully helped Elena down from the counter, both of them moving slowly, reluctant to break the bubble of intimacy they'd created. He retrieved their scattered clothing, handing Elena her blouse with a soft smile that made her heart flutter. As she buttoned her blouse, Elena's eyes fell on the divorce papers still spread across the counter, and she felt a surge of gratitude that they'd had this conversation before she'd let him see them, before fear had driven her to make a decision she would have regretted for the rest of her life. "What do you want to do with these?" Damien asked, following her gaze. His voice was carefully neutral, but Elena could see the tension in his shoulders, the fear he was trying to hide. Elena picked up the papers, looking at them one more time. All those carefully worded clauses, all those legal terms for ending something that should never have been close to ending. Then she walked over to the fireplace in the living room, the one decorative element they actually used, and tossed the papers into the flames. They watched together as the papers caught fire, curling and blackening, turning to ash. Elena felt Damien's arm come around her waist, pulling her back against his chest, and she leaned into him, feeling safe and cherished in a way she hadn't felt in far too long. "Good riddance," Damien murmured into her hair, his voice filled with relief. "Good riddance," Elena echoed, turning in his arms to face him. "We're going to make this work, aren't we? Really make it work this time." "We are," Damien said with absolute certainty. "But it's going to take effort, Elena. We're going to have to unlearn all these bad habits we've developed, learn how to communicate properly, how to be vulnerable with each other." "I'm willing to do the work," Elena said firmly. "Are you? For you? For us?" Damien kissed her forehead tenderly. "I'll do whatever it takes." They moved to the couch, neither willing to be far from the other, both needing the continued physical contact as they started the hard work of really talking to each other. Elena curled into Damien's side, his arm around her shoulders, her hand resting on his chest, where she could feel his heartbeat strong and steady. "Tell me when it started," Elena said quietly. "When did you start pulling away?" Damien was silent for a moment, clearly thinking. "About 6 months after we got married. There was this case at work, a massive corporate merger that went sideways. I was working 18-hour days, completely consumed by it. And I'd come home exhausted, stressed, angry at the world. And you'd be here waiting for me with dinner, with that soft smile, with patience I didn't deserve." He paused, his hand absently stroking her shoulder. "And I wanted to rage at you, to take out all my frustration on you, not because you'd done anything wrong, but because you were the only safe place I had. But that terrified me, Elena. The intensity of what I was feeling, the way you made me want to lose control. So I started staying at the office later, telling myself I was protecting you from my worst impulses." "But you were just protecting yourself," Elena said softly, understanding dawning. "From vulnerability, from needing someone." Yes, Damien admitted. I grew up watching my father be completely dependent on my mother emotionally, and when she died, he fell apart. Completely fell apart. Lost his job, his friends, his will to live. It took him years to recover, and even then, he was never the same. I swore I would never let myself need anyone that much, never give anyone that kind of power over me. So when you realized how much you needed me, you ran, Elena finished, pieces clicking into place. I ran, Damien agreed, his voice heavy with regret. I kept running, kept putting up walls, kept telling myself I was being smart, being careful, and all I was doing was destroying the best thing that ever happened to me. Elena lifted her head to look at him. Your father's story doesn't have to be yours, Damien. Yes, needing someone makes you vulnerable, but it also makes you human. And choosing to be vulnerable with someone you trust, that's not weakness, that's courage. I know that now, Damien said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Or I'm learning it, at least. You scare me, Elena. The depth of what I feel for you, it's terrifying. But losing you would be so much worse. You're not going to lose me, Elena promised. Not as long as we keep talking, keep being honest with each other. Your turn, Damien said gently. When did you start thinking I didn't care? Elena sighed, gathering her thoughts. It was gradual. First, you started working later, but I told myself that was normal, that you were building your career. Then you stopped initiating physical contact, but I convinced myself you were tired, stressed. Then we stopped talking about anything meaningful, just surface conversations about schedules and bills and household things. She felt tears threatening again but pushed through. And I kept making excuses, kept telling myself it was temporary, that things would get better. But they didn't. They just got quieter. And eventually, I started to believe that maybe you'd realized you'd made a mistake marrying me, that maybe I wasn't what you wanted after all. God, Elena. Damien's arms tightened around her. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I made you feel that way. I made myself feel that way too, Elena admitted. Instead of confronting you, instead of demanding answers, I just retreated into being the perfect wife. I thought if I could just be good enough, organized enough, undemanding enough, you'd want to stay. But all I was doing was making both of us miserable. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Damien said with a wry smile. Both so afraid of being vulnerable that we nearly destroyed something beautiful. Nearly being the operative word, Elena pointed out. We caught it in time, Damien. We still have a chance to fix this, to build something even stronger than before. How do we do that? Damien asked. How do we make sure we don't fall back into these patterns? Elena thought for a moment. Therapy, maybe. Couples counseling. I know it sounds cliché, but having a neutral third party to help us navigate communication might be good. I'm open to that, Damien said immediately. Whatever helps us stay on track. And we need to schedule time for each other, Elena continued, warming to the subject. Real time, not just existing in the same space. Date nights, weekend trips, daily check-ins where we actually talk about how we're feeling. Daily check-ins, Damien repeated. I like that. And I need to set better boundaries at work. The office doesn't need me 24/7, and you do. We also need to talk about intimacy, Elena said, feeling her cheeks heat despite everything they'd just done. Not just physical intimacy, though that's important too, but emotional intimacy. Being vulnerable with each other, sharing fears and dreams and insecurities. That's going to be hard for me, Damien admitted. I'm not good at that kind of openness. I know, Elena said gently. But you don't have to be perfect at it, Damien. You just have to try. And I'll try too. I'll try to speak up when I'm upset instead of retreating into silence. I'll try to ask for what I need instead of expecting you to read my mind. deal," Damien said, sealing it with a kiss, soft and sweet and full of promise. They talked late into the night, unpacking 3 years of miscommunication, hurt, and misunderstanding. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of defensiveness, moments where old patterns tried to reassert themselves. But each time, they caught themselves, took a breath, and chose vulnerability over self-protection. As dawn started to lighten the sky outside their windows, Elena and Damien were still curled together on the couch, exhausted but lighter somehow, like they'd been carrying heavy weights they'd finally set down. The conversation had ranged over everything, from small resentments to deep fears, from practical plans to emotional needs. "I want to redesign this apartment," Elena said suddenly, looking around at the pristine white space with new eyes. "I want it to feel like a home, not a museum. I want clutter and color and evidence that people actually live here." Damien smiled. "I'd like that. I've always hated how sterile this place feels. But I thought you loved it." "I loved the idea of it," Elena corrected. "The perfect aesthetic, the control. But it's cold, Damien. It's beautiful but cold. I want warm and messy and lived in." "Then that's what we'll do," Damien agreed. "We can start this weekend if you want. Paint some walls, buy some comfortable furniture. Make it ours for real this time." "Both of ours," Elena emphasized. "Not just my design choices. I want to know what you like, what makes you comfortable, what brings you joy." "You bring me joy," Damien said simply. "Everything else is just decoration." Elena felt her heart melt a little. "You're getting better at this vulnerability thing." "I have a good teacher," he replied, kissing her temple. They fell silent for a moment, both lost in thought. Then Elena spoke quietly, voicing something that had been bothering her. "Damien, earlier, you said you wanted me in ways that weren't gentle. But you were gentle with me tonight, at least at first. Why?" Damien looked at her seriously. "Because I needed you to know that I see you, that I value you, that this isn't just about physical desire for me. Yes, I want you intensely, fiercely, but I love you more than I want you, Elena, and I needed you to feel that difference." "I did feel it," Elena assured him. "And for the record, I don't need you to always be gentle. I'm not fragile, Damien. I won't break if you show me the full intensity of what you feel." A slow smile spread across Damien's face. "Is that an invitation?" "It's a promise," Elena said. "I want all of you, including the parts you think are too intense. I want the passion and the possession and the raw need. I want you to feel safe losing control with me." "You're dangerous," Damien murmured, his eyes darkening. "Offering me permission like that." "Good," Elena said boldly. "I like being dangerous to you. I like knowing I can affect you, that I have power over you the same way you have power over me." Damien groaned. "We're never going to leave this apartment again, are we?" Elena laughed, the sound free and genuine. "Eventually. But maybe not today." "Definitely not today," Damien agreed, pulling her into another kiss. But before things could escalate again, Elena's stomach growled loudly, breaking the mood. Both of them started laughing. "When's the last time you ate?" Damien asked, suddenly concerned. Elena thought about it. "Breakfast yesterday. I was too nervous about the divorce papers to eat lunch or dinner." "Elena," Damien scolded gently. "We're feeding you right now." He stood, pulling her up with him, and they moved to the kitchen together. Damien started pulling ingredients from the refrigerator, while Elena perched on one of the bar stools, watching him with a soft smile. "What?" Damien asked, noticing her expression. "I'm just realizing I've never seen you cook before," Elena said. "In 3 years of marriage, I don't think you've ever made a meal." Damien looked sheepish. I can make exactly 3 things: scrambled eggs, grilled cheese, and pasta with jarred sauce. I'm not exactly a chef. But you're making the effort, Elena pointed out. That's what matters. As Damien worked, cracking eggs into a bowl, Elena found herself marveling at how different everything felt. The kitchen that had felt like a sterile showroom hours ago now felt warm, alive. Maybe it was the morning light streaming through the windows, or maybe it was the presence of her husband actually being present, actually seeing her. "What are you thinking?" Damien asked as he whisked the eggs. "I'm thinking about how close we came to losing this," Elena admitted. "If you'd signed those papers, if we'd gone through with the divorce, we would have spent the rest of our lives wondering what if. What if we just talked? What if we'd been honest? What if we'd fought for each other instead of giving up?" Damien set down the whisk and came around the counter to her, taking her hands. "But we didn't give up. We fought. Maybe not elegantly, maybe not calmly. But we fought for this, Elena. For us. And we won." "We did," Elena agreed, squeezing his hands. "We really did." Damien returned to cooking, and Elena watched as he carefully scrambled the eggs, buttered toast, poured orange juice. When he set the plate in front of her, it was imperfect. The eggs slightly overcooked, the toast a bit too brown on one edge. But it was made with care, made for her, and that made it perfect. They ate together at the counter, knees touching, stealing bites from each other's plates, laughing at nothing and everything. It was simple, ordinary, domestic, and it was everything Elena had been craving without knowing it. "I want more of this," she said suddenly. "More mornings. Like this. More simple moments together. I don't need grand gestures or expensive gifts, Damien. I just need you. Present. Here. With me." "You have me," Damien promised. "Fully, completely, irrevocably. I'm not going anywhere, Elena. Not anymore." After breakfast, they moved to the bedroom, but not for the reasons Elena might have expected. Instead, they lay down together, fully clothed, just holding each other. Both of them were exhausted, emotionally and physically wrung out from the intensity of the night. "Sleep," Damien murmured, pulling Elena against his chest. "We'll figure out the rest later. Right now, just sleep." Elena wanted to protest, wanted to keep talking, keep connecting, afraid that if she closed her eyes, this might all turn out to be a dream. But Damien's heartbeat was steady under her ear, his arms solid around her, and exhaustion pulled at her like a tide. "Don't leave," she whispered, already half asleep. "Never again," Damien promised, his lips against her hair. "I promise, Elena. Never again." And for the first time in 3 years, Elena fell asleep in her husband's arms, feeling safe, cherished, and completely loved. Elena woke to sunlight streaming across the bed and the unfamiliar sensation of not being alone. For a moment, she was disoriented. Then memory flooded back. Last night, the divorce papers, the conversation, everything that had changed. She turned her head to find Damien already awake, propped up on one elbow, watching her with an expression so tender it made her chest ache. "How long have you been awake?" she asked, her voice rough with sleep. "About an hour," Damien admitted. "I couldn't stop watching you sleep. I've denied myself this for so long, just being able to look at you without guilt or fear. I'm making up for lost time." Elena stretched, feeling pleasantly sore in ways she hadn't felt in years. "What time is it?" "Almost noon," Damien said. "We slept for about 4 hours." "You should sleep more," Elena protested. "You must be exhausted." "I am," Damien agreed. "But I'm also terrified that if I close my eyes, I'll wake up and discover this was all a dream, that I'll be back in my study, alone, and you'll still hate me." "I never hated you," Elena said, rolling to face him fully. I was hurt, confused, angry sometimes. But never hate, Damien. I don't think I'm capable of hating you. He reached out, tracing her features with gentle fingers. I don't deserve you. That's not your call to make, Elena said firmly. I chose you, Damien. 3 years ago, I chose you, and I'm choosing you again now. Stop questioning whether you deserve it, and just accept it. Bossy, Damien observed, but he was smiling. You like bossy, Elena countered. I really do, he admitted, leaning in to kiss her. It started soft, a simple good morning kiss, but quickly deepened into something more urgent, more needy. Elena wrapped her arms around Damien's neck, pulling him closer, trying to eliminate every inch of space between them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damien rested his forehead against hers. We should talk about practical things. Work. I need to call the office. Tell them I won't be in today. Me too, Elena said. I was supposed to have lunch with my mother, but I should cancel. Don't cancel on my account, Damien said quickly. I don't want to isolate you from your family, Elena. That's not healthy. I know, Elena assured him, but I want to reschedule, not cancel entirely. I want today to be just us, figuring things out, planning our next steps. My mother will understand. Damien nodded, then seemed to gather his courage. Speaking of your mother, she never liked me, did she? Elena winced. She thought you were too distant, too cold. She worried you didn't love me. And you defended me anyway, Damien said quietly. Of course I did. You were my husband. I was supposed to defend you. Elena paused, but she wasn't entirely wrong, Damien. You were distant. You were cold sometimes. She just didn't know why. I'd like to change that, Damien said. I'd like to get to know your family properly. Show them I'm not the Ice King they think I am. Elena smiled. They'd like that. And I'd like to meet yours properly, too. I've only met your father twice, both times briefly at formal events. He'll love you, Damien said with certainty. He always asks about you, worries about you. He'll be relieved to know we're working things out. He knew we were having problems, Elena asked, surprised. Damien looked sheepish. He's perceptive. Last time I saw him, he told me I was being an idiot, that I was repeating his mistakes, letting fear drive my decisions. I didn't want to hear it at the time, but he was right. They lay there talking for another hour, making plans, discussing logistics, but also just enjoying being together. Finally, reluctantly, they got up to shower and face the day. Together? Damien suggested, nodding toward the bathroom. Elena felt her cheeks heat, but nodded. Together. The shower was intimate in a different way than the night before. This was slower, gentler, washing each other's hair, learning the landscape of each other's bodies again. Damien's hands were reverent as they traced over Elena's skin, and she returned the favor, marveling at the shift from strangers to lovers in the span of one night. I love you, Damien said suddenly, water streaming over both of them. I know I said it last night, but I need to say it again. I need you to hear it as many times as I can say it until you believe it, until you never doubt it again. I love you too, Elena replied, standing on her toes to kiss him. And I believe you, Damien. I do. After the shower, wrapped in plush robes, they made their phone calls. Elena texted her mother, asking to reschedule lunch and promising to explain later. Damien called his assistant, instructing her to clear his schedule for the rest of the week. The rest of the week? Elena questioned when he hung up. I have vacation days I've never used, Damien explained. Years' worth. I'm taking this week to focus on us, on our marriage. The office won't fall apart without me for a few days. What about your big merger deal? Elena asked, remembering him mentioning it recently. It can wait, Damien said firmly. Or someone else can handle it. You're more important, Elena. This is more important. I'm not making the same mistake twice. Elena felt tears prick her eyes again. Thank you. For choosing us. For choosing me. Always, Damien promised, pulling her into his arms. From now on, always. They spent the afternoon exactly as Elena had suggested, sitting together and really talking about their future. Not just surface-level logistics, but deep conversations about what they each needed from their marriage, what their fears were, what their hopes looked like. I want children someday, Elena admitted quietly. I know we've never really discussed it seriously, but I do. Not right away, not until we're solid again. But eventually. Damien was quiet for a moment, and Elena felt her stomach tighten with nerves. Then he smiled, soft and genuine. I want that too. I want to see you pregnant with our child. Want to build a family with you. You're right that we should wait, make sure we're on solid ground first. But yes, Elena. Someday, I want that. Relief flooded through her. I was afraid you'd say no, that you didn't want that kind of responsibility. I'll admit the idea terrifies me, Damien said honestly. The thought of being responsible for a tiny human, of potentially failing them the way I almost failed you. But I also know that fear is exactly why I should do it, why we should do it, because love is worth the risk of fear. They discussed other things too, careers and goals, where they wanted to live long-term, how to balance individual needs with couple needs. It was the kind of conversation they should have had before getting married, but Elena was grateful they were having it now. Better late than never. I want to take you somewhere, Damien said suddenly as evening approached. There's a place I used to go when I needed to think, to clear my head. I've never taken anyone there before, but I want to share it with you. Okay, Elena agreed immediately, curious. They dressed warmly, the October evening turning chilly, and Damien drove them out of the city. Elena watched the buildings give way to suburbs, then to more rural areas, fields and forests lit golden by the setting sun. Where are we going? She asked, as Damien turned onto a small dirt road. You'll see, he said mysteriously. Finally, they pulled into a small clearing. Damien led Elena down a narrow path through the trees, his hand warm and solid in hers. When they emerged from the tree line, Elena gasped. They were standing at the edge of a cliff overlooking a valley. The view was spectacular, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink and purple, the distant mountains silhouetted against the sunset. A small wooden bench sat near the edge, weathered but solid. I found this place about 5 years ago, Damien said softly, guiding Elena to the bench. I was driving aimlessly after a particularly bad day at work, and I just stumbled across it. I've been coming here ever since when I need perspective, when the world feels too loud. It's beautiful, Elena breathed, leaning against him. I used to come here and think about you, Damien admitted. Especially these past few months. I'd sit here and imagine what you were doing. Wonder if you were happy, if you'd be better off without me. I tortured myself with scenarios where you left me, where you found someone who could give you what I thought I couldn't. But you never talked to me about any of this, Elena said gently. You just suffered alone. I know, Damien said, and I'm sorry. But I'm done suffering alone, Elena. I'm done hiding here. From now on, when I come to this place, I want you with me. I want to share my perspective, my peace, my everything with you. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink below the horizon. Elena felt a profound sense of peace settle over her, a rightness that had been missing for so long. This was what marriage should feel like, she realized. Not perfect, not without challenges, but grounded in trust and honesty, and the willingness to be vulnerable with each other. "Damien," she said softly, "promise me something. Anything. Promise me that no matter how hard things get, no matter how scared we are, we'll talk to each other. We'll choose honesty over comfort, vulnerability over self-protection." "I promise," Damien said solemnly, lifting her hand to his lips. "I will never shut you out again, Elena. Never. Even when I'm scared, especially when I'm scared, I'll talk to you. And I promise to speak up when I'm hurting instead of retreating into silence," Elena added. "To ask for what I need instead of hoping you'll figure it out on your own." "We're going to make it," Damien said with quiet conviction. "I know it won't always be easy. I know we'll stumble sometimes. But we're going to make it, Elena. I've never been more sure of anything." As darkness fell, they stayed on that cliff, wrapped in each other's arms, talking and kissing and making plans. They talked about the therapy sessions they'd schedule, the date nights they'd prioritize, the trip they wanted to take to Italy next spring. They talked about redesigning the apartment, about work-life balance, about all the small ways they could show up for each other daily. "I want to know everything about you," Elena said at one point. "Your favorite foods, your childhood memories, your dreams, your fears. I want to know what makes you laugh and what keeps you up at night. I want to know you, Damien. Really know you." "Then ask me anything," Damien invited. "Nothing's off limits anymore." And Elena did. She asked about his childhood, about his relationship with his father, about his first heartbreak. She asked about his insecurities, his ambitions, what success meant to him. And Damien answered everything honestly, vulnerably, holding nothing back. In return, Damien asked his own questions. He wanted to know about Elena's dreams, the ones she'd set aside when they got married. He wanted to know what made her feel alive, what she was passionate about beyond just being his wife. And Elena found herself opening up in ways she hadn't in years, talking about the photography hobby she'd abandoned, the volunteer work she'd been considering, the creative pursuits she'd been too afraid to pursue. "Why did you stop taking photos?" Damien asked, genuinely curious. "I thought I didn't have time," Elena admitted. "Between managing the apartment and trying to be the perfect wife, I convinced myself I couldn't pursue something just for me. But the truth is, I was afraid of being bad at it, afraid of caring about something and failing." "What if you pursued it again?" Damien suggested gently. "What if you took classes, bought a better camera, gave yourself permission to be a beginner?" Elena felt something flutter in her chest, something that felt like hope. "You'd be okay with that? With me having something that's just mine?" "I'd be more than okay with it," Damien said firmly. "I want you to have passions and interests outside of us, Elena. I want you to be a whole person with your own life, not just an extension of mine. That's healthier for both of us." The drive back to the city was quiet, but comfortable, both of them lost in thought, but connected through joined hands across the center console. When they arrived back at the apartment, it looked different somehow, less like a pristine showroom and more like a place where two people were learning to build a real life together. "Hungry?" Damien asked as they shed their coats. "Starving," Elena admitted, "but I don't feel like cooking." "Pizza," Damien suggested with a grin. Elena laughed. "Perfect. Extra cheese?" "Obviously." While they waited for the delivery, they started looking at paint colors on Elena's tablet, discussing which rooms they wanted to change first. It was such a simple, domestic activity, but it filled Elena with warmth. This was what she'd been missing, the sense of partnership, of building something together. "What about the bedroom?" Elena asked, scrolling through blues and greens. "Whatever you want," Damien said, then caught himself. "Actually, no. Not whatever you want. I want to be part of this decision, Elena. That's the whole point, right? Making choices together? Elena smiled, pleased. Then what colors do you like? They debated colors and styles until the pizza arrived, then ate straight from the box, while sitting on the living room floor, backs against the couch. It was messy and imperfect and utterly perfect. I have a confession, Damien said between bites. Oh? I've never actually liked this couch. It's beautiful, but it's uncomfortable as hell. Elena burst out laughing. I hate it too. I picked it because the designer said it was the perfect piece for the space, but I've always found it stiff and unwelcoming. Why didn't you say something? Damien asked, grinning. Same reason you didn't, I suppose. I thought it was what we were supposed to want, what fit the aesthetic. New couch, Damien declared. First purchase for the renovation. Something deep and comfortable that we can actually relax on. With lots of pillows, Elena added. So many pillows, Damien agreed solemnly, and they both dissolved into laughter. It felt good to laugh together, to find joy in small things, to be silly and imperfect and real with each other. This was what Elena had been craving without knowing it. Not grand romantic gestures, but simple moments of connection and genuine happiness. After pizza, they cleaned up together, moving around the kitchen in a comfortable rhythm that was starting to feel natural. As Elena washed dishes and Damien dried, she caught him watching her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. What? She asked, feeling her cheeks heat. Just memorizing this, Damien said softly. You, here, smiling. I want to remember this moment, this feeling of everything being right. Elena set down the dish she was washing and turned to face him fully. It is right, isn't it? We're going to be okay. Better than okay, Damien promised, pulling her close despite her wet hands. We're going to be great, Elena. I feel it. I feel it too, she admitted, wrapping her arms around his waist. For the first time in years, I actually feel hopeful about our future. They stood like that for a long moment, just holding each other, both marveling at how far they'd come in just 24 hours. Yesterday morning, Elena had been preparing to end her marriage. Now, she couldn't imagine being anywhere but here, in Damien's arms, building something new from the ashes of what they'd almost destroyed. Bed? Damien suggested eventually. Not for anything except sleep. We're both exhausted. Elena nodded, suddenly aware of how bone-deep tired she was. They moved to the bedroom together, going through the simple rituals of getting ready for bed. But unlike the past 3 years, where these rituals had been solitary, now they brushed their teeth side by side, changed clothes in the same space, shared the bathroom without awkwardness. When they finally climbed into bed, Damien immediately pulled Elena against his chest, arranging them so her head rested over his heart. Comfortable? He asked. Perfect, Elena sighed, already feeling sleep pull at her. Elena, Damien said softly, his hand stroking through her hair. Thank you. For what? For not giving up on us, for pushing back when I tried to sign those papers, for being brave enough to demand more, to fight for what we have. I was ready to let you walk away because I thought that's what you wanted, what you deserved. But you fought, and I'm so grateful you did. Elena lifted her head to look at him. We both fought, Damien. You could have signed those papers. You could have let me go. But you didn't. You chose to fight too, to be vulnerable, to show me what you were really feeling. That took courage. I was terrified, Damien admitted. When you walked in with those papers, when I saw what you wanted, I thought my worst fear was coming true. But then I realized my worst fear wasn't you leaving. It was you leaving without ever knowing how much I loved you, how much you meant to me. I couldn't let that happen. I'm glad you didn't, Elena whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm so glad you fought for us." They kissed, soft and sweet and full of promise, then settled back into their embrace. As Elena felt herself drifting off to sleep, cocooned in warmth and safety and love, she couldn't help but think about how close they'd come to losing this, how easy it would have been to walk away, to give up, to assume that broken meant beyond repair. But they hadn't given up. They'd fought. They'd been honest. They'd chosen each other again and again, even when it was hard, even when it was scary. And that, Elena realized, was what real love looked like. Not the easy beginning when everything was new and exciting, but this, the choice to stay, to work, to build something worth keeping. The next week unfolded like a dream, or maybe like reality finally catching up to what Elena had always hoped marriage could be. Damien kept his word about taking the week off, and they spent their days alternating between deep conversations and comfortable silence, between passionate reconnection and simple domestic routines. They scheduled their first therapy session for the following week, both nervous but committed. They visited furniture stores, laughing at hideous pieces and debating the merits of various couches. They bought paint samples and tested them on the walls, standing back to see how the light changed the colors throughout the day. Elena pulled out her old camera, dusty from years of neglect, and started taking photos again. Simple things at first: light through windows, Damien's hands as he worked on his laptop, the city skyline at different times of day. Damien watched her with pride, encouraging every shot, never making her feel silly for pursuing something that brought her joy. In turn, Elena learned things about Damien she'd never known. She learned that he loved jazz music, but had been too self-conscious to play it in their apartment. She learned that he had a sweet tooth he usually suppressed, that he'd always wanted to learn to play piano, that he had a recurring dream about flying that made him wake up, happy. They cooked together, badly at first, burning pasta and oversalting vegetables, but improving with practice and laughter. They talked about everything and nothing, building a foundation of real intimacy that went beyond just physical attraction. "I talked to my father today," Damien said one evening, as they painted the bedroom a soft sage green. "Told him about what happened, about the divorce papers and everything." Elena paused mid-brushstroke. "What did he say?" "He said he was proud of me for not running this time, for choosing to fight. Then he asked if he could take us both to dinner this weekend, said he wanted to get to know you properly." "I'd like that," Elena said, meaning it. "I'd really like that." "He also said something else," Damien continued, focusing intently on the wall he was painting. "He said that watching his wife die was the most painful thing he'd ever experienced, but that he wouldn't trade the years they had together for anything. He said loving someone deeply means accepting the risk of devastating loss, but that the love itself is worth it." Elena set down her paintbrush and crossed to Damien, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Your father sounds like a wise man." "He is," Damien agreed, covering her hands with his. "And he's right. You're worth the risk, Elena. You're worth everything." They finished painting in comfortable silence, both covered in paint splatters by the end, both grinning like fools. When they stepped back to admire their work, Elena felt a surge of satisfaction. This was their room now, not just a showpiece, but a real space that reflected both of them. "I love it," she declared. "It feels warm, lived in." "It feels like us," Damien agreed, pulling her against him despite the paint on both of them. Imperfect, but real. That night, as they lay in their newly painted bedroom with the windows open to let out the paint smell, Elena felt a contentment she hadn't experienced in years. They were still a work in progress, still learning how to be fully honest with each other, still navigating the balance between independence and togetherness. But they were doing it, together, and that made all the difference. "Damien," Elena said into the darkness. Elena mused. "Sometimes you have to lose something to understand what it's worth," Damien said. Or almost lose it, in our case. Elena thought about that, about how close they'd come to the edge, how easy it would have been to step over. But they'd pulled back, together, and now, they were building something stronger than before. "I don't regret it," she said finally. "The pain of these past months, the loneliness, even the divorce papers. I don't regret any of it because it brought us here, to this honesty, this connection." "I wish we could have gotten here without hurting each other," Damien said softly. "But I'm grateful we got here at all." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, the smell of fresh paint in the air and hope in their hearts. And when Elena woke the next morning to find Damien still beside her, his arm draped protectively over her waist, she smiled. This was what she'd been fighting for, this simple, profound sense of belonging, of being chosen, of choosing in return. The weeks that followed established new patterns, healthier ones. They had their first therapy session, which was awkward and uncomfortable and absolutely necessary. They learned communication techniques, practiced active listening, discussed triggers and needs and boundaries. It wasn't always easy, and there were moments of frustration and misunderstanding, but they kept showing up, kept trying, kept choosing each other. Damien set firm boundaries at work, leaving by 6 every evening and refusing to check email after 8 at night. His colleagues adjusted. The world didn't end, and he found himself more productive during the hours he was actually at the office. Elena enrolled in a photography course, joining a community of other artists who encouraged and challenged her. She started building a portfolio, even selling a few prints, and the confidence it gave her spilled over into every other area of her life. They had dinner with Damien's father, who turned out to be warm and funny and utterly delighted that his son had finally gotten his head out of his ass. His words, not theirs. They visited Elena's mother, who cried happy tears when she saw how different Damien was, how present, how clearly in love with her daughter. 6 months after that terrible, wonderful night with the divorce papers, Elena stood in their newly renovated apartment, looking around with deep satisfaction. The sterile white museum was gone, replaced by warm colors and comfortable furniture, and evidence everywhere that real people lived and loved here. There were Elena's photos on the walls, Damien's jazz records stacked near the new record player, books scattered on surfaces, a cozy throw blanket draped over their very comfortable new couch. It was imperfect, lived in, real. It was home. Damien came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about? How different everything is," Elena said, leaning back into him. "How close we came to losing all of this." "But we didn't," Damien reminded her gently. "We fought. We chose each other. We did the work." "We did," Elena agreed, turning in his arms to face him. "And I'm so grateful we did, Damien. I'm so grateful you locked that door and made me listen, made me fight instead of running." Damien smiled, that warm, genuine smile that still made Elena's heart flutter. "Best decision I ever made, refusing to let you give up on us." "Second best," Elena corrected, her own smile turning mischievous. "First best was marrying me in the first place." "Fair point," Damien conceded, leaning down to kiss her. "Though I'd argue the best decision was realizing that loving you completely, intensely, without holding back, that wasn't something to be afraid of. That was the whole point." Elena felt tears prick her eyes, the good kind, the kind that came from overwhelming happiness. "I love you, Damien. not despite your intensity, or your imperfections, or your fears. I love you because of all those things, because they make you human, make you real, make you mine. And I love you, Damien replied, holding her close. For being brave enough to demand more, for refusing to settle for less than we both deserved, for teaching me that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the strongest thing we can offer each other. They stood there in their imperfect, beautiful home, holding each other, both thinking about the journey that had brought them here. From strangers who fell in love, to spouses who lost their way, to partners who fought their way back to each other, stronger and more connected than before. There would be challenges ahead, Elena knew. Life wasn't a fairy tale, and happy endings weren't really endings at all, just new beginnings. There would be disagreements and misunderstandings, bad days and moments of doubt. But now they had the tools to navigate those challenges, the honesty to confront problems instead of hiding from them, the commitment to keep choosing each other even when it was hard. And that, Elena realized, was what real love looked like. Not perfect passion that never faltered, but imperfect commitment that refused to quit. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of someone willing to struggle alongside you. Not finding someone who completed you, but finding someone who inspired you to complete yourself while building something beautiful together. Come on, Damien said, taking her hand. Let's go to bed. We have therapy in the morning, and I want to be well rested for it. Elena laughed, loving that therapy sessions were now just a normal part of their routine, something to schedule around like grocery shopping or dinner with friends. They'd come so far from the couple who couldn't even talk to each other honestly. As they got ready for bed, moving in their now familiar rhythm, Elena caught sight of a photo on the nightstand. It was from their wedding day, both of them young and hopeful and utterly clueless about how hard marriage would be. She'd hidden that photo away during the worst months, unable to look at those optimistic faces. But now it was back, a reminder not of what they'd lost, but of what they'd fought to keep. I used to look at that photo and feel like a failure, Elena admitted, nodding toward it as she climbed into bed. And now? Damien asked, sliding in beside her. Now I look at it and feel proud, Elena said. Those kids had no idea what they were getting into, how much work it would take, how many times they'd have to choose each other. But they made it, Damien. We made it. We did, Damien agreed, pulling her into his arms. And we'll keep making it, every single day. Elena smiled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady and strong. There was still so much ahead of them, so much to learn and experience and build together. Children someday, careers to navigate, a lifetime of small decisions and big moments and everything in between. But they'd face it all together, honest and vulnerable and committed. They'd stumble sometimes, hurt each other accidentally, need to apologize and forgive and try again. But they'd do it because they'd learned the most important lesson of all, that love wasn't something you fell into and stayed in effortlessly. Love was something you chose again and again, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. And Elena and Damien would keep choosing each other for the rest of their lives. There's a specific kind of joy that comes not from never facing darkness, but from finding your way through it and emerging stronger on the other side. Elena and Damien had faced their darkness, had almost let it consume them, but they'd fought their way through, together, and the light they'd found was brighter for it. Their marriage wasn't perfect, but it was real, honest, and built on a foundation of genuine love and mutual respect. And that, in the end, was more than enough. It was everything. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Comment where you're listening from. And if you felt it was really worth it, consider becoming a member to get early access to upcoming stories. Your support makes all the difference and helps us continue creating stories that touch the soul.